Alright, in this video I'm going to show you how to select and mask an object in an image and move it into another image. So I'm opening Photoshop, going to File, Open, and I'm going to open some files, and then I'm going to show you how to select and mask on one of these images. So after these are open, I'm going to select and mask this pillow here. So I'm going to go down to this add a layer mask and click select and mask. And then I'm going to first invert so that I can see the deselection. And there's several different views for this. I'm using the red one because my pillow is gray, and you can affect the opacity. So I'm going to mess with that a little bit. The first tool I'm going to use is this quick selection tool. I'm just going to go around the edge of the pillow. This tool is pretty good, especially when you have an image that's just on plain white like I have. You're going to need that especially for the bottom shadow part, but so I'm going to just quick select that, and then I'm going to zoom way in, and I'm going to use the brush to clean up those edges. And this part takes the longest. It took me about 11 minutes, and I will speed through it. I'll fast forward, but basically use the brush. The hotkey is B, and then you can affect the size and the hardness of it. I am using, I think, maybe like a 25 brush size and 25% hardness on these edges here. And when you go back and forth, you can either press Alt, and that will either change your you see how this changes from a plus to a minus? You can click that up top, or you can press Alt while you're working and it will automatically change it. So you can see how that can work kind of flexibly back and forth, which is nice. And then I also use, since I'm so zoomed in, I need to use the hand tool. The hotkey for that is H. So when I'm going through a stretch, I will, click B, use the Alt keys, and then when I'm done with this long run, then I will use that H hotkey to just move my canvas. For this little spot right here, I'm actually going to zoom in even further and change my brush to be a little baby brush, and we'll get in that crevice better than the big brush can. So once I get to the bottom here, I'm going to skip this whole bottom ledge because for this assignment, for best practices for this assignment, we're going to do that very last to grab the shadow. So I'm just going to pull all the way to the other side and then start on this right hand corner and go all the way up, just skipping the bottom completely. And the reason that we're skipping the bottom is because these three, the side and top edges, are going to be treated differently. We want them to be super sharp and crispy, and we're going to affect them, those three edges, and then afterwards we're going to go in with the soft brush and grab the shadow on the bottom because we need that edge to be different. So just go ahead and do the three, or whatever object you have, do all the parts that need to be sharp first and come in with your shadow last. Okay, so I'm pretty much done with those edges now, and I'm going to show you what these options on the side do. So there's a smooth option, I'm not going to touch that. This is what the feather option does. It just like blends the edge really soft. We're not going to use that either, set that at 0, but we are going to shift the edge a little bit. And so when you have a photograph of an object, usually the edges are going to be a little bit brighter. There's going to be a line that's a little bit brighter or a little bit darker that's right on the edge there, and that sort of gives away that it is part of a differently lit image than the one we're pulling it into. So I'm going to zoom in really close so you can see what this tool can do. If you pay close attention, you can see that very edge shifting. But I think I'm gonna zoom in a little bit more so you can see it better. So let's look really, really close up and pay attention to that edge. I think that is a bit too much, but I'm just gonna pull it in. That looks nice to me. That's 36% or negative 36% shift edge. So just go in really, really closely and look and see what looks right. And so in this bottom part, I'm gonna grab the shadow now. So I'm gonna use a brush. I'm gonna make it bigger, and I'm going to make it 0% hardness. So it's gonna be a soft brush. It's gonna blend the edges well, and then it should blend together onto the top surface of whatever sort of like white pedestal or gallery setting we're setting it into. So that's why it's really important to photograph your objects ideally on a fully white background, but at least the bottom on something that is white like this, so that we can grab the shadow and it doesn't have anything else behind it, pattern or a floor or anything like that. It just makes your image that much more convincing. So I just messed with the like overlay effect so I can see the shadow through it and know where to grab. But I'm gonna go back and forth and I can see where that red is, so I can get rid of that. And then I'm gonna run around a few times. I'm gonna change my brush size. I'm not gonna change the hardness, but I'm just gonna try and grab this shadow and blend it nicely. So while I'm working on this, I'm just going to say once you click OK on this layer mask, you can't affect any of the shift edge effects or the feather effects. And so before you click OK, make sure that you're happy with those. You can still go in and affect things with a brush. But if you do go back in, those effects will reset to 0 and any more changes you make will be applied to the entire profile. So just make sure that you're happy with that profile before you click OK. So I just turn up the opacity a lot to make sure that that shadow looks nice, it looks good, it looks soft, and the rest of the edges look clean. So I'm gonna fit that to the screen and I'm happy with that. So I'm gonna click OK. And then the next thing that I'm gonna do, I can drag this selection around now. It's free from the background. So I'm gonna open up my storefront stock photo that I'm gonna put these pillows into. And I can literally just drag that selection on top of this photo. And so I'm gonna make it smaller. I mean, that's kind of funny too, but I'm gonna make it like more appropriately sized. So you can go down to free transform. The hotkey for that is Control T. And you can do all sorts of stuff here. You can resize, you can rotate. I think you can mirror if you wanted to flip it. So free transform just allows you to kind of move around and like flexibly affect your selection. I can also type in the pixel sizes that I want if I just want to scooch it down a little bit more. And then I can just drag this thing around here and see where it looks good to my eye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull 4 of these pillows in just to line up with that lighting. And I'm just going to show you a really quick way to mock this up without having to do all of your selections first. So this is just an alternate timeline that I was doing that in with this other pillow shape. So I have this one really cleanly masked, but if I don't want to do that to all my others before I'm sure that that's the composition I want, I'll show you a quick way to put compositions together before you put in all of the edge work that takes the long time. So I'm just using free transform with this pillow again, trying to resize it and drag it into a place that I like. Now I'm gonna open up 3 more pillows that I haven't masked yet. In this alternate universe, these aren't masked yet, so I can select multiple files and I'll grab those open. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the same steps. I'm gonna do add a layer mask, select and mask, invert that mask, and sometimes this glitches and you can't see anything, so you just sort of have to mess with it a bit or just click out of the screen and then sometimes it fixes itself. So I'm just only going to do this quick selection option just because it's so fast and I just want to see how it looks. So this is all I'm going to do on these 3 pillows. I can come back in later if I decide that I want to use them, and I can do a much more thorough edge cleanup. But this is so quick, and I'll be able to see how they look together. So I'm just gonna pull these pillows in here one by one and free transform them, make sure they're the right size. I can do that by overlaying the new ones on top of the one that I'm trying to match to make sure that they're the same scale. I can also rotate it to make it look like it's sitting more flat. because I added that in before, these layers, you can just drag the layer above or below it, and I did an oopsie. Grab the layer and not the layer mask. And you can change the stacking order of the layers. Now I'm just gonna speed up this process. I'm just gonna pull these last two in and resize them and sort of move them all around. It's just a nice quick way to mock things up and design a composition. You can also really tell when I pull these three in that I haven't cleanly affected the edges or added the shadows. You can really tell that I haven't done that. They look like they're floating. The one with the shadow is a lot more convincing, so this is really just sort of a rudimentary mock-up stage. And when you go in and add the shadows later, it'll really help the image look more convincing. So when I'm happy with that, let's say I did everything nicely, I can go ahead and save it as, I would suggest saving it as a Photoshop document first, but the file that you'll turn in is going to be a JPEG, and if you name it last name, comma, first name, underscore, and then add a title or a description. That'll be the format for turning in these files, but again, I didn't show it in this video, but I would also save it as a Photoshop document, PSD. And then for the quality, leave it at 10 maximum. It should be there automatically. And then in this next little clip, I'm going to show you something you can do if you've saved it as a Photoshop document and want to do a little bit more editing. So these I have all edited with the shadows, but this shadow I'm not crazy about. So if I go into the layer mask, I can actually affect it while it's in the composition, which is sometimes helpful for seeing how things look together. So I want to make this shadow a little bit different. It looks weird to me. And I can just take a brush and change the shadow, just like I was on the image of just the pillow, but I can just do it in the layer on this composition that has 4 layers on top of it. And you can only do this if you saved your file as a PSD. So if you think you might need to go in and make changes, definitely save it as a PSD. And then when you're done, when you're really happy with the composition, go ahead and save it as a JPEG. And then PSDs are great for if you need to go back in and edit, but once you're finished, they do take up a lot of space, so feel free to delete them. But if you're not positive that you're done, just go ahead and save it as a PSD. And so you can see I changed the shadow profile. If I click OK, that will change as well. And so that's it.